Coach Peggy Show, all things wellness with Coach Peggy Willms. How many people in your life have told you you're half of this or half of that? Are you settling? No more. This show is about all things, and you deserve it. It's about your money, your lifestyle, your beliefs, and even romance. We extinguish excuses and raise the bar to all things possible. It's time to use your ATM, your all things mindset. Welcome to the Coach Peggy Show. Bold, badass, and never half in.
Hey, you guys. Oh my God, she is back. Listen, I'm your host, Peggy Willms. And I've been gone for a hot minute, you guys. I've been gone for about 15 months while I spent a bunch of time writing, and I recovered from my house being mutilated with the hurricane. So I am back. I'm back on track. So what do we talk about on this radio show? You guys know how it gets. We get real. It's the real world. It's real problems, real people, real solutions, real results, and real stories. Lots of reels going on. And this show is jam-packed. So as you can see, we're missing a guest, Mark Reed. He's from Japan. We're going to give him some love in hopes that nothing is wrong. If he joins us, we'll bring him on. So, all right, today we're going to talk about going against expectations and telling our truths. We're going to bring on our guests here in a hot minute. You guys know I always start the show with a quote. Today we are remembering that I'll be dead is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the best choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things are just going to fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. And that is from Steve Jobs. And that's legit, right? Expectations really don't mean crap. Today, we're going to talk about being our true selves. My guests today have also shared their stories. My co-author, Markus Wettstein, is on with me here. We are writing a book series called the All Things Wellness book series. First book, The Fourfold Formula, came out last fall. You can catch it on Amazon. The second one was a bestseller, Win the Wellness War. And Andy's story is in that. So we're super excited to chat with him. And then next summer, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. So hang out till the end of the show. Wellness GPS is the third book of the trilogy, and it comes out next year. Let's pop on the faces of my guests, Andy Vargo and Markus Wettstein. These beauties. I mean, Andy, if I had facial hair, which actually you do when you're in your 50s, let's just say. But if I did, I would have a handlebar mustache because yours is badass. I love it.
Thank you.
Hi, Andy. Hi, Markus. Welcome.
Welcome. Yes, thank you.
How are you guys doing today? Yeah, doing good. All right, let's introduce these guys for a hot second. So Andy Vargo is a podcast host. He is the own your awkward guy. Like, has the coffee mug, the shirts, everything to do it. He's a best-selling author. He's the creator of Awkward Journal series and Own Your Awkward Life Changes. He's a motivational speaker, business and life change coach. And guess what? He's a comedian. Shocker. He lived the first 40 years of his life feeling and being awkward. He came out of the closet at 40. It does not define him, hell no. And his passions are all around being comedic about his situation, which makes us all join together, doesn't it? Awkward is not only his brand, but his style, and he encourages us to be true to ourselves. That's what we're talking about today. Then the other really cute guy from Germany, I can say that because he's my friend and it's not professional on this show, so hey. Dr. Markus Wettstein has practiced endocrinology for over almost 35 years. He's a diabetes, metabolic, and stress management specialist. He also works in energy medicine as a licensed bio-well practitioner. He assists his clients in improving their health and wellness by measuring energy field, stress level, health status, and energy reserve via electrophotonic imaging. Sounds so professional. He's also a best-selling author, and as I said, my co-author in the All Things Wellness book series.
Thank you.
If you guys weren't such a big deal, I wouldn't still be talking.
Well, thank you. Excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here. We have a lot to talk about because truly we wouldn't be having a conversation if we weren't already sharing our stories. That's kind of how we all met. And most people, think about your professional resume. That's kind of where the stories we think starts as an adult. It's like, oh, hi, I have a bachelor's in whatever. And we're so much more than that. And so my mission, as you guys both know, is really about storytelling and connecting and changing and saving the world by telling stories. So I kind of just Well, I guess I want to start with an open question. Andy, you have written a book before you were published in our book. How difficult was it to be transparent and be, because you weren't writing about Harry Potter-ish type stuff. How hard was it for you to be transparent, especially with your subject? But was it tough to decide to go public with your story, especially in a book?
It was. I had already started sharing pieces of it through blogs on, through LinkedIn and stuff like that. So I had eased into it. And when I first put it out there, my early writing had always been very professional. It's like, I'm going to tell you how to help have a good LinkedIn profile, or here's how to create a to-do list or be effective at work. And it was very safe. It's like, people liked my writing. I was getting good feedback, but there was nothing personal in it other than, maybe what I ate for breakfast that day. So when I started, changing things in my life and reaching out and sharing things in a different way, it took a lot to realize that that personal story was a huge part of my professional journey as well. And that's where my credentials come from and how I can help people. So putting it out there, being like, what does it matter to people on LinkedIn that I'm gay? Like, that doesn't matter. And the first article that I wrote that really talked about it was called What Coming Out Did to My Career. And it was a little snide because just the title, because I had been laid off 3 weeks after I came out from a job. Yeah. And so, it was, I was let go for not being able to keep up with the territory. But then, within 3 months, 3 people replaced the spot I was doing, which was par for the course. But
typical.
I didn't talk about that in the article. What I talked about was, now that I came out in my career, I can go any direction I want and I can be true to myself. I didn't even mention getting laid off. I just put the title there to get the little zinger so that the people who knew would be like, what's he saying about us?
I love zingers. When we're behind the keyboard, I mean, we get to do what we want to do. That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, it was difficult because part of me was, who cares? What does it matter? And the other part was, if you're going to rip the Band-Aid off, you're fully exposed and you have to be okay with whatever comes back your way, and knowing that you don't have to accept it all, but you have to know it's going to come towards you. And I had a very good experience and can't be any less thrilled with how life has gone since I've made those decisions.
How many years has that been since you went public?
7 years.
Wow. Okay. And that's kind of what we're talking about too, is with this writing stuff, because the authors that Markus and I work with, they have expectations on, am I going to get poor feedback? Is anyone going to read this? There's so many things that it ends up stopping us from even starting to tell our story. So was your expectation, did you go into this writing it having any expectations, or did you do it for yourself to just cathartically get it out there?
Initially I was writing cathartically to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved that into sharing it. And even when I wrote my last book about life changes, it's Own Your Awkward Life Changes, it's a process to actually master change. I originally wrote that and I was just documenting the process that I work with clients on. And even then, even though I had started sharing online, I hadn't put any of my personal journey in there. And I realized I needed to go back in and add those stories in and say, when I was in this moment, when I was afraid to drive home because I had been fired, this is how I felt and this is how I dealt with it. And here's this tool. And it connected so much more with the reader when I could phrase it that way. But before that, I even didn't want to put it in the book. I just was like, oh, just do this, it'll be fine. And trust me, but that's not going to bring anybody over.
Right. And when I was just thinking, Markus, you wrote a couple of stories in the book, and one of the ones I was just going to kind of highlight today is the one you talked about, your body is your castle. And the reason I wanted to kind of bring that up is that story really, as a professional in Western medicine, that story really for me was you kind of saying, hey, I've got this spiritual journey I'm on and or want to enhance. And so now I'm going to go public with kind of sharing how these two worlds blend together. What has been your process over the last few years of writing and getting it out there? How about with expectations? What were your thoughts?
Well, I think it was very similar to Andy's experience. My biggest holdup was my anxiety about everything. And when you run your regular life, it basically just keeps going, and you don't think about stuff much. So you compensate for all these anxieties until one day, we were starting this process, and I was just, let's say, experimenting around with trying to find out where all these anxieties are and how I could slowly mitigate some of that. And through that process came more and more time to open up, basically, and let these anxieties not be so oppressive that I could not come out of my shell, basically.
Right.
Worries about criticisms and so on. And then the process of actually writing a story. And in the body is my castle. It's basically the foundation of my scientific experience with regards to folks. There is a lot of wars going on every day that you're not aware of, because your community of 30 trillion cells is taking care of it in the background, and you don't have to think about it once. That recognition gives you the love of your own body to be able to move on and address issues that are even more pressing. The bad stuff you keep under, and just like Andy said, when you're writing it down, it just kind of like helps you formulate it a little bit, see your anxieties in the writing, and correct that out so that you wind up with something that is not too aggressive and hurting other people or anything like that. And that gives you yourself during that process the chance to calm that mind down and let go of all these anxieties and aggressions and worries and doubts, because you're formulating it. And that is a tremendous process. The
When I
spiritual
was
aspect.
thinking of the three of you, the guests today, I was thinking about, Andy, you've got the business world and jumping the expectations and just thoughts of society in regards to your sexual orientation. Like, I'm just going to say it. Who cares? Write me later. I don't care. Whatever it is. I love you anyway. My skin color.
Yeah, can I intercede there? It's really funny how other people have to have opinions and we get affected by that. This whole process of exploration and self-management is not to reflect on other people what your own problems are with your anxieties and everything else. Oh, you're gay. Who cares what kind of sexual orientation anybody is? I'm taking care of myself, and you take care of you. If you're happy with your life and I'm happy with my life, we all win.
Well, the
Don't meddle in other people.
Yeah, the interesting thing when I was thinking about the three of you is that you can almost use a blank and insert anything in it. So for instance, the expectations and thoughts and labels of a physician. Mark Reed is an attorney who now makes Japanese paper. Okay, who was going to be on the show. Andy, businessman, and then you chat about, your personal life that way. I'm a coach. Do I really talk about my struggles with eating disorder and OCD when I'm giving everybody else advice? But everybody acts, you can still have the same audience. They agree, they don't agree, they're fearful, they're angry, and we're all dealing with this stuff. When I look at your story, Andy, guys, when I work with these authors to come up with their story titles, I mean, Bananas to Buddhism is still one of the best. And that was, if you guys can go into the book, Win the Wellness War, Mark Reed, who again was going to be on the show, one of the best titles, I swear to God. But Andy, your title, Starved My Mind to Save My Soul. You're a really, I call it putting sprinkles on a cupcake. You're a very colorful writer. And you're a brilliant writer, but you take us there. And some people are very factual and some really sprinkle some stuff. But I was so proud of you it's very intriguing, and it grabbed me and took me in. How long did it take for you to write that particular story?
That particular story. Yeah, I always say that I cheat on the writing because I'm just writing about what happened. So
Right.
I'm not a fiction writer. I'm not coming up with characters and all this stuff. I'm just documenting life. But that took me a lot longer than I expected, because I can write out, in an hour or two, I can write 1,000 words and have them pretty well edited and cleaned up. But what I didn't expect with that story was to reopen wounds from years ago that I hadn't gone back through. So it was like, wait, I've got to go back and resit on that log on the beach and rethink about where my mind was, what was going on in my headspace. And so there were times where I would have to take a break. And it took me, a whole week just to step in and out of that story, which normally a story that length I could pump out in an hour or two, especially when it's something that's already happened that I'm not making up where the journey's going.
Right.
So that really, really took more because of the emotional toll. I say, when you're a writer, when you're sitting in a coffee shop and you have like tears running down your eye, or you're laughing out loud, you're experiencing the emotion of what you're writing. I just wonder what people are thinking that is going on your computer screen.
It's like, what that guy's problem?
Yeah.
Okay over there?
The central thing for me with regards to your story was, the log. That is the central portion for me, because that is all the same, and the environment that you describe is pretty much the same. But the two times that you mentioned is a complete change in your attitude towards all of it, and that is what we're all driving for. We're trying to get there. We're trying to change our attitude towards life. And that was fantastic.
I appreciate that.
For you guys who are, gosh, I'm echoing so much, I'm driving myself crazy. For you guys who are wondering what we're talking about, in Andy's story, he does such a great job of taking himself kind of back to this log. He's camping, and to me, it's kind of like a heart center place. You go back to this location to kind of think about things, and then you go back to kind of reflect, and you go. So I think, Markus, if I hear what you're saying, that was really one of the pivotal, like the nucleus of the story.
Yeah, amazing. The contrast between everything in the environment is pretty much the same, but I have changed, and that makes the difference in my life, right? So that's the beautiful spark in there.
Yeah, it was.
Go ahead.
No, it was that point in my life where I had gone through all these changes but didn't see the results I wanted. And that's the thing I was struggling with is, wait.
Yeah, I felt your agony.
Where's the good feelings? Where's the benefit? How come I'm not living this feeling amazing life? It's like, oh, because my head's not in the right space. And when you make big changes, great things come, but they don't necessarily come right away. There's a lot of work to do. It's like building a building from the ground up, and you can't go to the top floor and look out the window until you've built all the other floors and finish the project.
And all those good opportunities, they could batter you left and right. If your attitude is not right, and if you're not receptive, it's all going to pass you without any consequence. And that's the sad part for some.
Well, and even the expectations of coming out, like, what would it be like if I did? Surely I'll feel amazing. Surely. And then the other side of, like, I can't. Nobody's going to accept me. Or, that whole story that I'm sure you spun in your head a million times.
Yeah, one of my early keynotes was titled "Living Without Shades." And it was talking about life when you take your sunglasses on, and I related it to playing hide and seek with a toddler who covers their eyes, and then they think that you left the room. They can't see you, that you must. Then they're hidden and they're safe. But one of the things I talk about that is when you take your sunglasses off, you can see a lot better. Everything's more vibrant, and you can see the world so much better. But when you first do that, you have to deal with the glare and how bright everything is. There's that time of adjustment. And I didn't plan on the adjustment time. I'm naive enough to go into things going, I'm making this decision. It's going to be great. Here we go. And then it's like, oh, I've learned since then, but.
I suspect it wasn't just a drop dead July 1st. I'm going to have a conversation with my wife of many years. But was there a culmination of bubbling things that were just reaching that breaking point where you're like, I got to live my truth, like, enough is enough?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was a combination of continually being in jobs I wasn't happy with, thinking that your life is looking great on paper and you're moving forward. And it's like, sure, it looks great, but it's not what I feel good about. And, marriage that I wasn't bringing my best self to, and I wasn't demanding the right respect for myself in the marriage either. So, it didn't create a good situation. And at some point I came down to, I remember a week or two before my 40th birthday, standing in the dining room thinking, holy crap, everything is going to change in the next year. And I didn't know how or what. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do these things. It was just, I can't live like this anymore, because I'm very fear driven. And when the fear of things staying the same is scarier than facing the change, all of a sudden it's worth doing.
Yeah, I like that. And your story too reminds me of what I hear from a lot of other people, is that they want to write their story after the main characters are dead. And people laugh at that, but it's like, if you've had particular abuses in your family and your siblings don't want you to say anything about dad, or your mother was a drug addict, but maybe she didn't think she was. I mean, a lot of people wait for this audience of characters to be. So what were your thoughts about, because you have children and
I do. And that's a line I have to balance on. I try not to speak a ton about what was going on in our marriage or stuff like that, because I still have to respect my kids' relationship with their mom, and I want them to have a good relationship with their mom. And they haven't chosen to be in this public life that I'm in, so there's this interesting balance there. But so I try to balance that line of being authentic, talking about anything with anybody, but not airing all the dirty laundry, but also being honest enough about things weren't great. Obviously it was a marriage that wasn't ideal, and I own my part of that too, but it's not just me. And when I actually, before I came out, I never thought I would come out to my parents, who are in their 80s now and were 80 when I came out, and Catholic, and hard old school religious. I'm thinking, this is not a life I ever live or plan to live. And also, when we talk about all the different things that we identify as, I didn't want that to be, oh, I'm this thing now and here I am. It's like, it's just a part of me. And that's, other than I talk about it a lot because it's important for us to accept all of the parts of us. But when I go out, I have people all the time who I don't know why they don't get it with the mustache and the fancy hair, but people don't always pick up on the fact that I'm gay. And it's like that. And I'm fine with that. Because it's not like, oh, this is the thing you need to know. There's a lot of stuff about me. I'm a father, a speaker, a comedian, a writer, a son and sibling. And that's just one piece. And and that also correlates to what you said about filling in the blank, where we all have this thing. Because I don't think anybody has it any worse than anybody else. We just have it different.
It's just different. We're going to talk a lot more about this, and we're going to take a quick break. So Sierra's going to take us away, but you guys, when we come back, we're going to do something that I have done on many of my shows, and I'm very excited. It's called the lightning round, and my guests have no idea what that's ever about. So you guys make sure you come back. You're watching the Coach Peggy Show, and we will be here waiting for you. Oh my God, we're back. I know you're so excited. If you're running on the path, just keep staying tuned, because we got some pretty cool people on the show. We have Markus Wettstein, and he's a co-author that I am hanging out with for this All Things Wellness trilogy book series. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And we have Andy Vargo here on the show that, let's just say, he's amazing. He sparkles. We sparkle. All right, we're going into a lightning round, you guys. Lightning round is where I ask these guys any question that I want, and they try to come up with some answer that sounds a little bit intellectual or really, really hilarious. Are you guys ready?
Oh boy.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Markus, if you had to give a previous employer some advice, what would it be?
Previous employer. Well, I was employed a long time, but I would say it's you. And what kind of advice would I give you? Lighten up, get the OCDs, calm down a little bit.
You guys, he's saying that I was his previous boss. I actually did manage his medical clinic back in 2009, but was I really in charge? Damn, I wish I knew that back then. So you tell me.
Back then you were. Now it's all just higher ups, just pushing down, right? They call it bicycle riding in Germany. Is that over here too? You you step to on the bottom and you try and be really nice on the top.
Oh,
No, they
no,
didn't hurt to hear that. So bicycle riders are the ones that are, beating up their sub, the people that they're in charge of, and then they're all just nice and huffy and puffy on
that
the top.
makes sense. Kind of on the high wire. I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
Andy, what
Sorry.
about you? What's the last gift that you received?
Me? Oh, Andy.
The last gift that I received, well, yesterday I received some cucumbers from my niece because she works on a farm.
Nice.
And
that's great.
yeah, and it's just kind of, I've really come to appreciate little things that, it's like, I have this and I'd like to share it with you. And whether that's something that somebody made or their art or the gift of time, I just love when I can spend time with people.
And what's the last gift that you gave?
The last gift that I gave, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of that. I gave somebody a book that another friend of mine wrote because I had shared that I was reading this book and they're like, oh, I think I could use that. So usually when I get a book, I usually buy 2 copies, especially if it's from a friend of mine. That way I have one to read and then one to give away. So
that's a really cool idea. All right, Sierra, are you paying attention? My producer?
I sure am.
Tell me something that most people don't know about you.
Oh gosh. Most people don't know about me.
Yeah.
I guess something you guys don't know about me is I'm also a high school soccer coach.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's
Nice.
fantastic. I love that. Thank you, Sierra.
Mhm.
Andy, what is something that most people maybe don't know about you?
Most people don't know that I am the youngest of 7 kids.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh. You kind of seem like you're more towards the first and second born, but
I am obnoxious like a baby.
I get away with murder. Okay, Markus, what about you? Something that maybe somebody doesn't know about you.
Something that somebody doesn't know about you. I hate exercise. No, everybody knows that. Words, nobody. Oh, geez. What am I coming up with? I thought you were going to change the question, so I didn't even think about this one.
Okay, lightning
I'm
round.
stumped.
Just hit me. Hit me with something.
What was the question? Now I'm getting excited,
He stalls. He stalls. I'll give you a second to think.
Things that people don't know. Yeah. I really don't like Germany all that much. I was born and grew up there, and I think it's time to say I really don't.
Okay, for those of you who are listening in Germany right now, please do not stop following me. Oh, that's funny. I think one thing that not many people know about myself is that I was a synchronized swimmer.
Wow.
Yes, and standing on your head in 10 feet of water and spinning beautifully with pointed toes is not that easy.
Yeah, no kidding,
Just
man.
saying. All right, that was fun. That was fun stuff. Hey, you guys, we're still talking about these guys' personal stories, being transparent, and not only that, but living your own truth. And, sometimes we live our own truth behind doors, so nobody knows. And then we talk about maybe living our truth out in public, which is a whole nother thing, especially with social media. And then we talk about telling the stories and putting them on a piece of paper that anyone can buy in a best-selling Amazon book, which is, you really don't know where someone's going to pick that up. Like in Germany, somebody might pick your story up.
Oh, there are plenty in Germany. I still have my family over there, so yeah, they all read it.
Yeah. And how did Markus? I want to jump back to you when you think about in the physical sense, because you're an endocrine and a diabetes specialist. Those are organ-based, very vessel body-based. Take a test, a blood test. How are you doing? Here's maybe some medicine. And then you start to go through this evolution of your own, mind, body, spirit, heart type, transformation. How much do you take that into your practice, either verbally with speaking to your clients or?
Quite a lot now, because I don't feel like I'm restricted to deliver the rubber stamp. There's the book knowledge and what you're supposed to do, And then there's the thing that is beyond that, that is a little bit more patient oriented. And that patient orientation is basically taken out of modern medicine now because it doesn't make any money. I still defend that, and that's why I have my job the way I have it. And the administration is okay with that. But that gives the opportunity to fold in the spiritual aspect in most of my patients, because that's what has been lacking. And when we're talking about what we're doing here, the development of the wellness wheel, the spiritual aspect has been lacking for many, many years. And now we're starting to incorporate that. And the funny thing is, I see that in other practices as well. It is starting to become more interesting. For instance, reports in the emergency department, chronic headache. Well, maybe you should go and talk to a counselor and see what's triggering these. That type of stuff is new. That wasn't in existence.
That's true.
In the old
That's
days.
a really good point. I was first diagnosed with migraines when I was about 3 or 4 years old, because they thought I had seizures. They thought all sorts of things were wrong with me. And I mean, my medical records literally go back that far with migraines. But you know what, buddy? They never talked to me about my stress level, my imposter syndrome, my perfectionism, my eating habits, my sleeping
Exactly.
habits, my finances. When we talk about the All Things Wellness Wheel trademark tool, you guys can catch that on my website, allthingswellness.com, in the store tab. I've got a free download. And what that wheel is looking at 24 areas of your life, seeing how you're doing, pretty much on a scale of 0 to 10. Oh, look at how I wasn't
There
even
you
going
go.
to talk about it. But you can, that's great, Markus. Thank you. You can download that, kind of see where you are. And then there's an improvement plan on there that you can, because it's a self-assessment tool. If you don't take responsibility for your own health and talking about the heart, spirit, mind, and body and balancing that, I mean, like we're talking migraines, the stress levels and anxiety that you have had, Andy, about, one thing that I like that you said is that when you sat back and you said, I'm going to look at all spokes, many spokes of my life. It's no different than the wheel. Why am I unhappy at work? Am I, being a good husband, listening, those types of things. And then you came to the center, your heart, and said, what the hell am I going to do to fix this heart center to become a more truthful and honest person to myself? It is balancing all that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it was, like when you talk about it, just being like, you talk about like, sometimes we live our truth, in the behind closed doors, in the closet, however you word that. And sometimes we live it out and about. And now, everything doesn't have to be public. Everyone doesn't have to know all your stuff, but
Right.
know that it's okay that you can be like, you know what? Like, I was working at the coffee shop the other day and someone's like, you work so hard, you're always working. And I said, you don't see when I'm sitting on the couch having those low days for 3 days in a row. You just see when I'm working. So I appreciate that. But trust me, I have those days and they're there, and that's okay. Everyone doesn't have to see everything, but we have to be able to address it in order to move forward.
And again, that circles us around to expectations. Just this morning, I felt like I had to defend myself in the sense of like, you have so much on your plate. How do you do so much? It seems like you work 24/7. And I just feel like I'm defending myself, sitting back here and going, for the first time in my life, I sleep 7 hours a night. I'm hydrated. I don't miss meals. I go for walks, but no one's asking me that.
But honestly, no. They ask you that question because they're thinking deep inside, why can't I do that, right? And then you're given a bad example, having so much energy and putting it out there. That makes them feel bad. So now they're trying to make you responsible for their bad feeling and giving you a hard time over it. There's a typical of these mechanisms that keep on popping up that people are using because they've learned somewhere, and they're programmed, and they don't even think that, well, Jesus, I shouldn't fault her for doing all of this, and I shouldn't fault myself for not being capable of doing all of this. It's just the way it is.
And I think another point to bring up, and maybe Andy, this is how you feel too, is my job isn't work. Like, that's not even a word I ever use. I love it. I eat, drink, and sleep it because it's my craft. It's my talent. It's where my creativity is. It's where my gratification and satisfaction. that too. Yeah, so it actually fuels me. I don't drink, I don't gamble, I don't eat meat. Jesus, let me have something, you know?
Right.
Let me have some, you know, I was thinking when we point our fingers, right? I always told my kids this, when you point your fingers at others, you're doing it wrong. You should have done this. There are three fingers pointing back at you. Like,
Mhm.
what are the three times the issue of what you're saying to me and blaming and damning me for? What are your issues?
Mhm.
You know,
Well, I think by doing that, it's people do that, and I've been in the place where I've done that because it gives you the excuse to not try and to not have to put in the work on yourself. And you say, well, Peggy's just wired differently. She can do these things. I can't. So why would I try to do them? I'm just gonna, frustrate myself.
right, right. And I think too, as part of it, that the conversations don't happen when we're young about how to handle these emotions and what's emotionally intelligent and how to have that resilience in those conversations. We're not taught that we can go, what is your perspective? That's why I love this storytelling. You know, we could all talk about, this black coffee mug, and I might think about a memory with my grandmother. You might think about, like, I hate the color black because I had a lot of nightmares or whatever, but the perspective of the same subject, whether it's workaholic, alcoholic, religious beliefs, political, why can't we just sit around, listen to everybody's memories and perspectives, agree to disagree, but not have these expectations that we all have to walk that fine line that's the same line. We can't, it's not even possible.
Right.
It's
Yep,
not even
yep.
Markus?
Criticizing other people doesn't really help at all, because most of these people are smart enough. They have that criticism. They deal with that every day and they feel bad about it. So why enforce that by putting your 5 cents worth in it? And I think the stories in the book, they beautifully illustrate that we all walk our own walk, and people judging us is just ill-fated, honestly. It's
Well, and
not
we can't
helpful.
we can't give it the fuel either. We need to be confident enough to stand
Well,
up and, hey, I'm going to leave the room.
and one of the things that I did not realize I was as good at as I am is reframing situations and thoughts. And that is really become something that I work with a lot of people on. And one of the things that I do is when I get criticism, I am excited because I'm like, yes, I must be making it. Because if I'm getting haters, if I'm getting people who don't like what I'm doing, that means that I'm actually getting attention, that I'm actually must be making waves because
There's a point.
I'm making somebody mad or annoyed or whatever.
No,
So
that's
I revel in it, and I'm not
Very
out there
good.
trying to create animosity. But whenever I get anybody who says anything like, "Why would you do this?" or "I can't believe that," or "There's no way you're this or that," I'm like, sweet, I am like
I like
star
that.
level now.
If you have people that are stalking you and you have haters, you've made it.
They're
It
still
takes,
following.
but you're the exception, Andy, because most people get defensive, right? I mean, as soon as there's criticism, boom, the walls go up, and then the criticism doesn't land. In your case, it sounds like, well, you're actually taking this constructively and you're working with it. Most people don't. They just put the wall up in the story.
Now I do still beat myself up a lot. I still have a lot of days where I'm, the biggest bullies in my head from middle school, and he's still
Right,
there. And
right.
so I do have to deal with that a lot, where it's like, okay, sometimes it's like, wait, why are you always qualifying things? Why are you always, oh, I'm almost there except for this. But when it's from someone else, I'm like, no, you don't get that right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Sure,
So
self-defense.
what would you, both of you, I want to ask both of you this, so I'm going to give Markus a second to think about it.
So I don't get so anxious again.
Okay, Andy, I'm going to ask you if take the stage and give a call to action to those people listening and watching. And what I mean by that is, in your personal journey that you've gone through of living your truth and saying screw it with expectations, what's a call to action that people around you can charge them to do that will help the rest of us trying to get rid of expectations?
Well, I think that one thing is to pay attention to the action you're taking, because that's what you have control of. I'm a big believer in lowering your expectations without lowering the bar. Keep the bar high, but lower your expectations, because if we can walk into a situation and just track, you know what? I'm trying to grow my business. I'm focused on that right now. How many people did I call? How many people did I email? What did I do today to do that? And it doesn't have to be 10 or 20. Did I at least do one? So just do one thing every day to make your life better, and track what you're doing so that you can say, you know what, I made 10 healthy choices today, or I made 2 healthy choices. And tomorrow, maybe I'll make one more than I did today.
Yeah, I love that. Look at your actions, you guys. All right, Marcus, what about you? What's your call to action to maybe something that relates to your story, even with your spiritual growth? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking more in terms of judgments, you know. Let's try and analyze before we judge other people. I mean, there are sometimes people just not aware, and a little judgment call will wake them up, and that's okay. But most of our judgments are delivered in a negative fashion. And when that's the case, it just does not go anywhere. So let's try and turn that around and think about maybe constructive criticism. Instead of, you know, ill-fated judgments that get to start, you know, feuds.
I love that. Andy, just so that we don't forget, can you tell everybody where they can find you? I mean, in the physical sense of on stage, you can tell us the city, but how can they reach out to you? Email, website, anything?
My website is awkwardcareer.com, and you can find me all over the internet on social media at either Awkward Career or Own Your Awkward with Andy Vargo. Got podcast, got YouTube videos that range from silly and quirky to inspiring. So hit me up. I'm always happy to connect.
That's awesome. That sounds good. Marcus, how can anybody reach you or find you? If they have questions.
Well, I have
me?
On Facebook, number one, yes. My personal email is Markus Wettstein, MD, is usually the one. There is also my personal email. I have no problem with giving that out. It's a truncated last name, so it's M and then Wettst, WETTST, @gmail.com. And then obviously allthingswellness.com, and that will go all through you and get nicely filtered.
Look, I'm still managing his life. Except my pay scale went way down.
I know. Isn't that horrible?
That's okay. All right. Hey, you guys, I want to do a few housekeeping things. And for anybody that's listening, the first 5 of you that email me at peggy@allthingswellness.com, first 5 people that email me, I'm going to send you a free copy of the Win the Wellness War, the best-selling second book of the trilogy. So go ahead and take advantage of that. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show or have any other questions, still reach me at that same email, peggy@allthingswellness.com. There's a couple of tabs on my website I'd like to bring attention to at allthingswellness.com, the authors tab. You're not only going to find all the books that I'm working on or have worked on with compilation books with other authors, but if you'd like to publish your story, your true, personal, authentic story in our next compilation book. We're looking for 30 authors. It's about half full. You can find out more information again on my website, authors tab, and then just select the book, Wellness GPS. That's the new book coming out. I have another book on there, Unsheltered, where we're giving voices to the street. We are going to be seeking many, many stories for those that are unsheltered and homeless across the world globally. And you can find that tab there if you'd like to find out more information. Just one more thing about myself, super excited. In September, I released the first book of a 5-book children's series that I'm writing with my 29-year-old son. And we are reflecting, I'm telling the stories as a mom, and it's called Tanner Tells Tales. And it is truth, accountability, love, emotion, and support. And I am writing his stories of when he was a kid. They're all true. And then he's taking a reflection now that he's a dad of 2 boys back on, pretty much saying, what the hell was I thinking?
Oh, that's great.
So that first one.
What comes around goes around in the real world.
Hey,
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, watching him raise my, 2 grandsons and him sending me videos like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing it. And I'm like, that's great. I love it. Let him play in the mud. All right, you guys, I want to just come back around, and Andy, I'm just going to pull this out. What is the biggest obstacle you feel like you're facing right now in your personal journey? What's just like a little baby hiccup you have right now? And then we're going to tie this up.
One of the biggest hiccups that I have is not seeing how far I've come in my journey.
Oh my God.
I constantly don't realize that I'm halfway, 3/4 of the way up the mountain. And if I just stop and turn around and see the view and celebrate all the wins along the way, I forget to do that. And I just keep seeing that the top is so much further away, and I'm going for it. And that is the bad headspace that I get into sometimes. Like, wait, there's a lot of good stuff that's been happening that's going on, and I got to celebrate that.
Man, I think that that's really good. And I don't know if part of that is that as parents, because all parents do good things and they do things we wish we could change that we can't. But as parents, I think it's really helpful if we really look at lifting those things up, especially I'm just going to say it to the child who's doing really well. Okay. The child who's getting A's, the child that's going to school, that's the star athlete that you don't have, he's not the squeaky wheel, is the one that often needs a little bit of attention too. You know, look at, I'm so proud of you. Look at you. You're doing great. I can't believe how hard of a worker you are. Because it's the one that's a little turd, Andy. Youngest of children. But I would like us to, as parents, and I'm going to try to do a lot better job even of my adult children, is to say, you know, you got it going on, man. Like you've done some good stuff. You're a good human. You've got great character. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm taking that call to action, buddy. All right, Markus, is there a hiccup that you have right now in your personal, professional life? You're kind of trying to.
Yeah, it's still plenty of anxiety. You know, just because I'm here doesn't mean that there's a lot of other stuff that is still to be tackled. So the biggest worry at this point in my life is kind of like, I see all this, and then I'm looking, man, the clock is ticking. Hey, I'm running out of time here. How much can I get accomplished?
Right.
I hadn't had that before in my life. So it's a good kind of an obstacle, you know? It gives me motivation.
I think that's a good point. I think today, a couple of times this morning already, I've typed, I'm blessed to be stressed and stressed to be blessed. I don't frame it that way. I find myself in that anxious 3 o'clock in the morning thing going, what am I anxious about? I'm actually anxious about the life I've created. I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do. And if you send that energy out there, what if you stop getting those great things because you're behaving? Because I use the same emotions to behave, good or bad. Fear, anxiety, eat or not eat. You know, we've got to, your body, as you and I've talked, your body doesn't know the difference between good stress and bad stress. High blood pressure, posture, all that stuff reacts with a happy, good wedding, or it does with a project at work. It's here, you know, and how we deal with it. Okay. Next project you have coming up, Andy? Do you want to announce anything that's coming up? Do you have anything to share with everybody? New book, new
yeah, I have a book coming out in the next couple months called Own Your Awkward Thoughts. It's mastering the art of reframing, and it's all about, it's got 60 daily reflections that help you change the way you think about different situations. So that will be out pretty soon.
So you really are the reframing master. Seriously, I think that's great. Markus, anything upcoming? We've got this book upcoming, and
well, you know, that's a big one. And then the promotion of the wellness wheel. You know, I'm really a firm believer that is the very first actual comprehensive tool to get people to self-assess and wake up. And because of that, there's a lot of work to do convincing my colleagues to put that into their offices and things like that. So there's a lot of work to do, but it is, you know, right along the path of trying to do good for other people, because that makes me happy. That's just me. And so I'm trying to do that to get going.
It's all about balance. Even
the wellness wheel.
Yeah, when I tell people that, you know, it sounds great, you want to run a marathon, you're going to be at the gym 7 days a week, you bet. What's going to happen with date night with your husband and the laundry you haven't folded for 5 days? I mean, it's all right. It's all about
it's amazing.
Yeah. All right, you guys, I just want to tell you that you can come back and catch the Coach Peggy show on the second and fourth Wednesday of every month at 12 noon Eastern. Just a quick shout out to my next guest on August 23rd, Dr. Rachel Sweet, who has a background in neuropsychology, and Evelyn Knight, who is an expert in childhood education, early childhood education. She's also a TED talker. And we're going to really be talking about something similar that you gentlemen and myself were talking about today, but it's telling those personal and transparent stories when we work in professions that we often say, ooh, you know, should I be sharing this, you know, publicly? And I think, Andy, you said it I believe you had said it, that, when we actually do tell these stories, we kind of get the following we want, right? Because when people learn a little bit more about us and we're transparent, then everything is more believable. Like your reframing course is much more believable because I know your true story.
Right.
Than
That's a
looking
good
like
one.
this perfect coach that, has everything figured out. That's hard to live up to. All right, you guys, as I say, technically, you have come into this world naked and alone. You're going to go out naked and alone. So don't worry about anybody else's expectations. You go live your truth, and I will catch you next time on the Coach Peggy Show.
You've been listening to the Coach Peggy Show, all things wellness with Coach Peggy Willms. Tune in live on transformationtalkradio.com, where Coach Peggy talks all things wellness, not just nutrition and fitness, but about all things, about your money, your lifestyle, your beliefs, and even romance. The Coach Peggy Show, bold, badass, and never half in. For more information or to connect with Coach Peggy, visit allthingswellness.com.